Hey everyone, welcome back to Political X. For more knowledge and updates on UK, European and US politics, make sure you subscribe to this channel. So this week I wanted to look at an interview that took place on LBC with Nick Ferrari and Cressida Dick, and I wanted to look into the 3 points that she made in the interview as to why no investigation had been done. Now, for you out there who are outside the UK or just do not know who Cressida Dick is, she is Commissioner of Police of the Metropolis. So essentially she is the head of London's Metropolitan Police Service. But she's a bit more than that, because that isn't just limited to London. She also has responsibilities in leading counter-terrorism policing, protection of the royal family, which is very interesting, and senior members of the UK government. Now, during her interview, she stated 3 questions. Is there evidence of a crime? Did that crime take place in the UK? And is the criminal that was involved, or the alleged criminal, still alive? So the way I've decided to approach this is to create a timeline of events that seem pretty verifiable, that have primary sources and people making the allegations direct, and then, as well as taking some snips from different media shows that I've found, and then to come back to those 3 questions and see if we can answer them based on what we've seen in the timeline. So let's start. And I've decided to start from 1982. Ghislaine Maxwell arrives at Balliol College, Oxford. 1983, Boris Johnson arrives at Balliol College, Oxford. 1985, Ghislaine Maxwell leaves Balliol College, Oxford. At some point during the 1990s, Epstein is introduced to Ghislaine Maxwell by her father, Robert Maxwell. And we skip to 1994. And the reason we skip to 1994 is because the FBI make a serious allegation in the US versus Ghislaine Maxwell.
We allege that from at least 1994 through at least 1997, Ms. Maxwell assisted Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by helping to recruit, entice, groom, and abuse children under the age of 18.
Written by the lawyer Bradley Edwards. In it, he tells the story of a woman known only as Fantasia.
Another time, while in London, Fantasia and Ghislaine encountered a very young-looking girl who Fantasia thought was innocent and should be left alone. She recounted Maxwell protesting and telling her that someone had to give Epstein a blowjob, and if this new girl didn't do it, then Maxwell herself would have to.
So a model by the name of Anouska de Georgia, who is a socialite and now lives in the US but is a British citizen, has spoken out about what's taken place. She claims to have met Epstein as a teenager in London.
I was involved in that kind of lifestyle growing up, and so I thought I could cope, and I thought I could handle it. By the time I was being raped, it was too late. When Jeffrey would see me, he would physically shake because he wanted to get at me.
We are now aware of a 3rd victim, who is a British girl under the age of 18 who has claimed that all rape allegations have taken place in London, in Maxwell's house, around the 1990s, and some dates include 94. In 2001, Virginia Roberts claims that she was brought to Ghislaine Maxwell's house. She has provided photographic evidence to support that. The FBI has recently confirmed that the photo is authentic. There is also evidence from an affidavit from 2001 from Virginia Roberts' boyfriend at the time, which states that he saw the photograph and yes, it was real.
I implore the people in the UK to stand up beside me, to help me fight this fight. It kind of worked like a pyramid scheme. Ghislaine brought me in. I brought other girls in. Those girls brought other girls in. And no matter what, Jeffrey constantly had that open revolving door of young women, young teenagers, children, I like to call them, coming through his door for one purpose and one purpose alone.
Prince Andrew denies all knowledge of knowing her and that the events didn't take place.
I was with the children. I'd taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party.
As you can see from this Google Maps, it takes probably an hour and 15 minutes. It's probably a little bit quicker if you've got a police escort taking you all the way down to Woking. It is not impossible for him to have gone to that place at Pizza Express and then come all the way back to London.
Civil court documents filed by a victim known only as Jane Doe claim she was abused, manipulated and exploited by Epstein in the UK in what she describes as horrific abuse. Here she states she was a naive and uniquely vulnerable 22-year-old when Epstein and Maxwell first preyed upon her. That was around 2001. There followed years of abuse. She claims she was repeatedly raped and forced to give Epstein oral sex. The documents claim this occurred in New York, Palm Beach, New Mexico, London, Paris, on Epstein's private island, on Epstein's airplanes, and other locations.
We also have a second incident with Virginia Roberts and this lady, Joanna Yorberg, who claimed to have met this puppet, Prince Andrew and Maxwell, and it's in an affidavit, and saw Prince Andrew having relations with both Virginia Roberts and herself. Next we move to 2004 and a worker on the island called Steve Scully, who claims that he saw Prince Andrew and Virginia Roberts together on the island. Let's have a listen.
I started working on the island in 1999. Jeffrey hung out with a lot of powerful and well-known figures, both politically and financially, and I mean, British royalty. It's probably around 2004, I saw Prince Andrew. He was at the pool. He was with, at that time, an unknown girl to me. She was young. She didn't have any top on. They were engaged in foreplay. He was grabbing her and grinding against her. After Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, all of a sudden the FBI now and this task force, they interviewed me. They had me look at a large series. It must have been 60 or 70 photos. And that photo is a photo of Prince Andrew with a young blonde girl. And as soon as I saw her, that was the girl that he was kind of like grinding against at the pool.
By 2005, enough complaints had been put forward to Miami police that they were able to get a search warrant and go into Epstein's house, which you're viewing right now. Unfortunately, it seems that Epstein had been tipped off and hard drives and video recordings had been removed from the property. However, Epstein was not at the house because he was in England and he was with Prince Andrew celebrating Prince Andrew's daughter's birthday. Upon Epstein's return, he was arrested. However, the real stunner comes that Prince Andrew and Maxwell used Epstein's jet in September of that year, despite being aware of Epstein's arrest. You might query the significance of this, and you'd be right to do so. If we are now building a case and we can see that there's evidence that there are hard drives and video footage, and we even have a photo taken from Maxwell's house and she's been announced as an accomplice, is it not logical that some of that footage might be inside Maxwell's house, or other footage from other events in that house? From 2005 to 2008, Epstein is investigated, prosecuted, and is put in jail for 13 months, although it's a pretty cushy jail, to be honest. He's able to go out during the day and only has to come back at night. In 2014, Virginia Roberts and a Jane Doe filed a case against Epstein, and within that case, they were making allegations against Prince Andrew. Now, Judge Kenneth Mara ruled that the allegations made by Virginia Roberts against Prince Andrew had no bearing on the lawsuit, and so it had to be taken out of the case and was struck from the record. In December 2010, Prince Andrew is caught on camera visiting Epstein, who has now been prosecuted and convicted of child sex offences, but Prince Andrew still goes to visit him. He's there over 5 days and is also photographed waving goodbye to a girl at the front door. In January 2015, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, sends an email to Ghislaine Maxwell stating about wanting to talk and ask questions about Virginia Roberts. And of course, Ghislaine Maxwell responds and says, "Have some info, call me when you have a moment." In 2015, Virginia Roberts went to Scotland Yard and gave them information about her allegations.
I gave them all the details about that night with Prince Andrew and how the trafficking took place and what it looked like, and they said, okay, well, that's fantastic. Thank you for letting us know.
In July 2019, Epstein dies by committing suicide in prison. In August 2019, prosecutors in Paris, France, opened up the beginnings of an investigation into Epstein for rape and sexual assault of minors under the age of 15. This is, however, what Boris Johnson had to say.
One comment I would make is I think an awful lot of money, an awful lot of police time now goes into these historic offences and all this malarkey, and 60 million pounds I saw was being spaffed up the wall on some investigation into historic child abuse and all this kind of thing. I mean, what on earth is that going to do to protect the public now?
In July 2020, the US begins investigations into Maxwell.
Maxwell was among Epstein's closest associates and helped him exploit girls who were as young as 14 years old.
A number of testimonies goes to the likelihood that this was a very big operation of organised sexual exploitation.
Do you think we know the full story of what happened here in the UK?
No, I don't think we do. I have had the opportunity to look at just a little bit of the evidence that exists, and that was quite shocking to me, and that should merit a proper investigation.
What it is, grooming is when an individual, particularly an individual in a sort of power dynamic, uses psychology, uses emotional blackmail, ensures that financial tools are applied, presses every button that a vulnerable person has in order to, in effect, to abuse them. It vitiates consent. So somebody might think, for example, that they have consented to sex, but that consent wasn't true consent, because it was either compliance, so they complied with whatever it is that they were required to do. They acquiesced, which meant they were under control.
And to be clear, you can be groomed even if you're over the age of consent.
It's vulnerability that determines whether you can be groomed or not, and adults can be groomed.
Scotland Yard should follow any available evidence which is credible, or at least purports to be credible, against anyone involved to be sexually abusing and trafficking young ladies.
So, historical sexual crime, what investigation is taking place into the allegations from Virginia Roberts concerning Prince Andrew?
So,
is she to be believed?
So I'm not going to talk about individuals, but what I can say is that I think what you're referring to is associated with Jeffrey Epstein, who I will talk about since he is deceased. And the position there is that we have had more than one allegation that is connected with Mr. Epstein, and we have reviewed those, assessed those, and we have not opened an investigation.
Why would that be? If there are reports of girls, underage girls, being trafficked to London for sex with the Duke of York, isn't that something
so
the Met will want to look at?
What we will look at is there evidence of a crime? This is what we have looked at. Is there evidence of a crime?
So, is there evidence of a crime? Right, let's look into that. We've looked at the timeline. We've seen Anouska de Georgia claiming that she was a victim of the crime in London. We have Virginia Roberts claiming she was a victim of a crime in London, with photographic evidence of her with Andrew and Maxwell together. We have victim 3 claiming she was a victim of a crime in London. We have Stephen Scully saying that he's seen Prince Andrew with Virginia Roberts. We have the US government taking a British citizen, Ghislaine Maxwell, into court, being investigated by the FBI, and stating very clearly that some of these crimes have taken place in the UK. But according to Commissioner Dick, there's a lack of evidence to investigate. Bear in mind also, France, a year earlier, has also opened an investigation.
Are we in the right jurisdiction? Is this the right jurisdiction for this to be dealt with?
So, have any of these crimes taken place in the UK? So, Anouska de Georgia, yes. Virginia Roberts has said yes. Victim 3 has said yes. We have verifiable evidence from Steve Scully saying Prince Andrew and Roberts were together, verifying from a third party that there was something going on between the two.
And is the person against whom the crime is alleged still alive?
Yes, Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell are alive.
Those are the 3 things that we do look at and we have looked at in these cases. And we have concluded that there is no investigation for us to open, and we haven't. We have taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service, and I am clear that that was, and it's been reviewed twice.
Let's be really clear here. If this was a teacher and they had 3 students come forward and say that they had all had inappropriate actions with the teacher, there's a photograph and the janitor claims they've seen one of the students and the teacher together, do you think the police would investigate? The obvious answer is yes, they would. Even if it was just one student making a complaint, they would investigate. So why does it take 3 plus a photo plus an eyewitness and it's still not enough? It's not enough that the French are investigating, it's not enough that the US is investigating. What does that tell you?
The right decision. I'm aware that currently there is a lot more commentary in the media and a apparent civil court case going on in America.
Well, it's not apparent, it's a fact.
And we will, of course, again review our position.
So as a result of what's happened in New York,
we'll be looking at the position. Of course, we will. But at the moment, there is no investigation.
Right. Have you seen the testimony or notes from the Duke of York's Royal Protection Team pertaining to the night of the allegation he strenuously denies, what took place in a London apartment?
So I really am not going to comment any further, Nick.
Someone's seen those notes.
I'm not going to comment any further.
Is he above the law, the Duke of York?
No one is above the law.
This almost feels like Judge Dredd saying, I am not the law.
So you're reviewing this case?
Absolutely. It's been reviewed twice before. We work closely with the CPS. We are, of course, open to working with authorities from overseas. We will give them every assistance if they want to, if they ask us for anything within the law, obviously.
And as a result of New York.
And as a result of what's going on, I've asked my team to have another look at the material.
Okay.
No one is above the law.
Now, according to the Channel 4 documentary, they're claiming they've got 14 allegations that took place within the UK. So, what do you think? Is there evidence of a crime? Did a crime take place in the UK? Are the alleged criminals alive? If you say yes to all 3 of these, that begs the question, why are the police saying that these 3 things didn't happen? Or at least one of the 3? I hope you enjoyed my political observations this week. If you'd like to support me, please share the video with others and post about it on social media. If you're keen for more, subscribe, comment, like, and hit that notification button. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Political X.